Namaskar. Nileshok here with another exciting session about the Mahabharat War and the dating of the Mahabharat War based on empirical, scientific, logical evidence from the Mahabharat text. Today we will talk about fascinating evidence from the Mahabharat text about a specific graha, specific planet, and that is Venus. Venus evidence from the Mahabharata. Now, number of you have already seen my video on Mars evidence from the Mahabharata. And if you have not seen it, every reason to watch this video. This first video, in fact, it has crossed now, 100,000 plus views, 120,000 plus views, rather. What is the number now? 124,000 views. But again, remember, this is a small number. It also reminds me that our Shastrakar, when they thought of tapa or a specific duration for tapa, there are many durations, but they thought of 12 years as one definition for a tapa. And I am seeing this in real practice. This is the second instance of it. For example, back in 1994, 1995, when I started researching Arundhati Vasishta observation, in fact, in my naivety, I thought I was going to solve whatever that challenge was, whatever that puzzle was, in maybe a week, maybe a couple of weeks. And in reality, it took me 15 plus years, more than 12 years, from 1994, 1995, all the way to 2009. Finally, when I demystified the Arundhati Vasishta observation, its scientific basis, why Bhagwan Vyasadeva would have stated that Arundhati was walking ahead of Vasishta at the time of Mahabharat War, and rest is a history. How the time interval determined by the Arundhati Vasishta observation, like from 11,000 BC to 4,500 BCE, is validated by another set of evidence from the Mahabharata text, namely evidence related to Bhishma Nirvan, how Bhishma was on the bed of arrows from the 10th day of the war all the way to the day of winter solstice, Uttarayan, for more than 95 days, and how that evidence combined with additional evidence from the Mahabharata text also takes us to another tight interval that fits within the interval determined by Arundhati Vasishta observation, namely in this case, say from 5100 BCE, like 5000 BCE to 7000 BCE. And lo and behold, the Mars evidence, there are specific descriptions. And guess what? When you objectively, empirically test them using astronomy, you can use mathematical calculations, you can use astronomy software, it does not matter. As long as you have a good knowledge of astronomy, you know how to perform mathematical calculations, or you know how to use astronomy software, guess what? All 8 descriptions of Mars decisively lead us to one specific and unique year for the year of Mahabharat War, that is 5561 BCE. I have also created a video based on the Saturn and Jupiter evidence. I would encourage you to watch that as well, but definitely watch this Mars in Mahabharata. Now, the Mars evidence definitely takes us uniquely to 5561 BCE, but anyone with a basic, very basic understanding of science, scientific acumen, Vijnana Buddhi, knows that there is this balance of necessary conditions. There is a requirement of necessary and sufficient conditions. And guess what? There is also a specific demand that a theory imposes on the researcher who proposes the theory. So when I say My theory is that all astronomy descriptions of the Mahabharata text related to the timing of Mahabharata war are the descriptions of the sky of the Mahabharata war times. Guess what? The Mars evidence is capable, is sufficient to take us to a specific and unique year for the year of Mahabharata war, namely 5561 BCE. But we have a onus to look at all the other astronomy descriptions from the Mahabharata text related to the Mahabharata war and empirically, scientifically, objectively test them and report the results. Do these descriptions also agree, validate, corroborate, match with 5561 BC or not? And that's what we are going to do for Venus. Now, what I'm showing you here is this planetary evidence and how it overlaps. For example, if you want to look at the Mahabharata evidence for, say, retrograde motions of the planets, guess what? We have descriptions for the retrograde motions of the planets in the Mahabharata text at the time of Mahabharata war for Saturn, for Jupiter, for Mars, and for Venus. And today we are going to focus on Venus. But just like there are retrograde descriptions, there are many other peculiar motions, peculiar descriptions. For example, Tishtita, like as if to stay in one place. Akramya, which means near a certain thing, such as near a specific nakshatra. Pida, which means afflicting, torturing. And this can be interpreted in multiple different ways. And then there is a Vakra motion, okay, which is very specific or specifically described with three instances, twice in the case of Mars and once in the case of Jupiter. So this provides us a tremendous opportunity for us to test this evidence from the Mahabharata text encoded by Bhagwan Vyasadeva at the time of Mahabharata war, encoded, of course, about 18 years after the Mahabharata war when he sat down to compose the Mahabharata, and thousands plus years after the fact. That's the beauty of astronomy. Astronomy is time, and Indian astronomy is one of the finest, if not the finest in the world. And that's why we can go back, actually look at our modern science, astronomy simulations, astronomy calculations, very accurate data. And therefore, and only because of that, we can arrive at a unique date such as 5561 BCE. Now, today, let's focus on the Venus evidence. We are going to look at the retrograde motion of Venus. And again, what you will see is with that, all other existing Mahabharata dating researchers, they have already shut down. Okay, they dare not talk about the planetary evidence. They dare not talk about the Bhishma Nirvana evidence. They dare not talk about the Arundhati Vasishta evidence. What do I mean by they dare not talk about it? Of course, they will blabber, and I want them to blabber. I expect them to blabber, and this is for a reason. When I say they dare not talk about it, they dare not talk about it in a meaningful fashion, in a scientific fashion, in an empirical fashion, in a fashion where they can describe objective testing of the Mahabharata evidence. They will not do it. They will dare not do it. That's how powerful this evidence is. Let's look at the Venus evidence. Now, if you want to know all the 300 plus descriptions, astronomy evidence from the Mahabharata text, how that all together points to 5561 BCE. I mean, the videos have their limitations, just like books have their limitations. So it's a combination of the blog articles, the videos, live lectures, your own study, and the books. That's what is going to take you to your realization about this beauty of 5561 BC. So it's your choice. If you would like to do it, here is the reference to the books. Okay, if you are in India from Subbu Publications, you can buy this decisive dating combo pack. If you are outside India, of course, you can still buy from Subbu Publications. But you can also buy these three books, or actually all four books, including Yuganta by Jivan Rao from Amazon, wherever you are. If you have access to Amazon, you can type Jivan Rao, you can type Nilashok, you will find these books, you can have them. These books are also being translated. Actually, in some cases, they have already been published, such as my When Did the Mahabharata War has been translated in Kannada. It's been published. And the Historic Ram has been translated in Marathi. It's also been published. And a abridged version of the Historic Ram in Hindi is also been published. If it's not here, it's not been published, guys. Don't waste your time and my time asking the question. When the translation does become available, it will be informed, it will be reported in any one of my recent lectures at that time. All right, let's get into the Mahabharata Venus evidence. How many descriptions do we have? Well, let's look at them. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There are 6 specific descriptions related to planet Venus, Shukra, in the context of the Mahabharata war, in the Mahabharata text. These are encoded by Bhagwan Vasudev. And we are going to look through this evidence and show how all this evidence also corroborates, validates 5561 BCE, which we arrived based on the 8 descriptions of Mars evidence. All right. Okay. The first one, the very first descriptions in the top left-hand corner is a beautiful description of Venus going retrograde. Shukra proshtapade purve samarya vishampate uttare tu parikramya sahita pratyudikshate. The second reference is on the first day of the war, and what it says is that the Shukra Angaraka, that means Venus and Mars, were seen together, seen in the same part of the sky, seen near each other, something like this. If you go to the third reference, that was seen on the ninth day of the war, and again, Yatha Buddhascha Shukrascha Maharaja Navastale, again, Buddha and Shukra, Mercury and Venus were seen together in the same part of the sky. All right. So remember, first day, Venus and Mars were seen together. The ninth day, Venus and Mercury could be seen together. Let's move forward to 14th day, the next two references. On the 14th day, again, Mercury and Venus could be seen together. And finally, the 18th day of the war, the last day of the war, 3 planets, Bhrigu, Suno, Dhara, Putro, Shashi, Venus, Mars, and Mercury were seen together in the same part of the sky. We are going to go through all of them. So remember, a retrograde motion of Shukra, where was that? Shukram proshtapade purve samaru vishampate uttare tu parikramya sayita pratyudikshite. Do you know what is specifically the description is saying? That Venus came near Nakshatra Purva Bhadrapada Proshtapade Purve, turned in a parikrama by turning northward, turn in the north direction to make a parikrama in this area of Purva Bhadrapada. And that's basically a classic retrograde of Venus. And then simply we are going to look at if Venus and Mars could be seen together on the first day of the war, then Mercury and Venus could be seen together on the 9th day of the war, again on the 14th day of the war, and if Venus, Mars, and Mercury could be seen together on the last and the 18th day of the war. All right. So with that, just to quickly summarize then, if we can show this, we already have shown that Mars evidence of the Mahabharata decisively leads to 5561 BC as the year of Mahabharata war. Arundhati Vasishta observation, Bhishma Nirvana evidence, all of them validate this time interval of 5561 BCE. And if you look at the planetary evidence, super rich, 50 plus. Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, Sun, Moon, and of course Mars corroborates and revalidates 5561 BC. All right, let's get into the astronomy simulation. We will begin with the day 1 year before the first day of the Mahabharata war. What we will do is we will lock Venus. So as we proceed with time, the Venus will always be there at the center of the screen. Okay. So the day when we are starting the simulation is exactly 1 year before the first day of the Mahabharata war, October 16, 5562 BC. From there, we are going to arrive at the first day of the war, October 16, 5561 BC. All right. Why am I doing this? Because that's what I have done for other planets, for Saturn, for Jupiter, for Mars. Okay. In addition, I also want you to become familiar and comfortable, visually comfortable with the motions of Venus. What does it do in a typical course, okay, of its movement along the ecliptic? So let's begin. We will start with a step change of 1 day. So Venus is around Jeshta. Now this is 1 year before the first day of the Mahabharata war. Notice Venus is not going to be too far away from the sun. Okay, maybe what? About 3 nakshatra space, like about 45 degrees. That's the farthest the Venus will go from the sun. So you will notice Venus is always around the sun, either behind the sun, behind in the sense of west of the sun, or ahead of the sun, the way you see it right now, that is to the east of the sun. We will continue this journey, and it's very close to the ecliptic, sometime on the north, sometime on the south, okay, and so on. We will continue this journey until we arrive at the first day of the Mahabharata war, 16 October 5561 BCE. Okay, notice Venus stays close to the ecliptic, sometime to the north, sometime to the right, okay, and also close to the sun. All right, we are approaching October, so let's stop here. October 7, 5561 BCE. Okay, we will fast forward, or forward rather, until the first day of the Mahabharata war. That's 16 October. All right. What do we need to validate? We will begin with the second observation, which said on the first day of the war, Venus, that's right here, and Mars, here, they could be seen together. And if you look at their longitudes, like 14, so right ascension, that's the number I'm looking at here, 1422 and 1352. So that's what, about 30 minutes. So that's like 30 minutes. So that's like they're separated by a very small distance. If we could actually visualize, let's say, the full disk of the sun or full disk, Purnima disk of the moon, these two could fit inside that disk, okay, or on the circumference of that disk, because the diameter of disk, sun's disk or moon's disk, is about half a degree, which is that 30 minutes. Anyways, so the first validation, the first day, Venus and Mars were together is validated. The next observation that we have to do is for the ninth day of the war. So let's go there. So notice on the ninth day, the Mahabharata description says, Bhagwan Vasudev says that the Venus and Mercury could be seen together in the same part of the sky. etc. Okay, so let's go. So this is first day, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I don't know if you noticed. Of course, everything is moving, but Mercury was moving faster towards Venus, okay, in the eastern direction. So this is the 9th day. The observation says that Venus and Mercury could be seen in the same part of the sky. Okay, so if I want to do this, I can uh, find out exact separation if I need to. I mean, visual is enough, but let's do it anyway. So 1223, that's the right ascension. And this one is 1424. Okay, so 1223, 1323, 1423. So that's about 2 hours difference in right ascension, which is what? Which is 30-degree difference. So the separation between Venus and Mercury on the 9th day is of about 30 degrees. Now think of it, 30 degrees out of the total 360 degrees of the whole circle. So this is validated for the 9th day of the war. The next thing we need to do is to arrive at the 14th day of the war. Okay. Again, Venus and Mercury are seen together. That's two observations. So let's do that. So this was what? 9th day. So, okay. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There you go. Did you notice? Everything is moving, but Mercury is moving faster eastward. Okay. So yes. On the 14th day again, we can say that Venus and Mercury were seen together in the same part of the sky. And now let's fast forward to the last and the 18th day of the war, which is 2nd November 5561 BCE, the day when Kali Yuga began, based on 90 plus descriptions from the Mahabharata text, from similar references saying the same thing from Harimamsha, from Bhagavad Puran, and from various acharyas such as say Madhvacharya, that's going back 800 plus years, or in our times, Srila Prabhupada, who started the ISKCON movement. Of course, they are repeating what the Shastras are saying, but that also brings a conviction, like, the Shastra Prachiti, Shastra Pratiti, Guru Pratiti, Guru Prachiti, and Atma Prachiti, So like we ourselves reading Mahabharata text, someone like Jivan Rao reading through the Mahabharata, extracting 90 plus references and saying, yeah, the Kali Yuga began on the last and 18th day of the Mahabharata war. Not only that, but indeed it began on the Pushya Nakshatra, 2nd November, 5561 BC. So let's go to this last day to validate our second last reference of Venus. Okay. And then we will look at the retrograde motion of Venus. So this one is day 14. Okay. So 15, 16, 17, 18. There we go. Okay, so this is the last day of the war, and it says Bhrugu Suno Dhara Putro Shashi Jaina Samandvito Charamam Pandu Putrana Purastat Sarva Bhugujam. On the 18th day of the Mahabharat war, Mars, Venus, and Mercury could be seen in the same part of the sky. If we need to look at this again, so this is 1312, and let's look at the Mars to understand the maximum separation. 1512. Wow. So 1412 and 1512. These three planets on the last and 18th day of the war, Vasudev says they were seen together, they were seen in the same part of the sky, and this simulation is showing us that they were within a span of 30 degrees, okay, which is what? One Rashi, one zodiac space, okay, very close. That's what they were seeing. Now, the interesting part. Not to say that this was not interesting, but now we are going to look at the retrograde motion of Venus. Okay, I'm going to lock the position of Venus and magnify, not magnify, make the view bigger. Okay, maybe opposite of magnify. But the point is so that you can also see the yoga taras of different nakshatras, Shravan, Shatabishaj or Shatataraka, Purva Bhadrapada, Uttara Bhadrapada, Revati, and so on. Okay, Venus is right here. Now we are going to look at, so this is the last day of the Mahabharata war. Vyasadeva continued to make observations of the sky. Okay, observations of the sky throughout, actually for a long time, past Bhishma Nirvana. And those are encoded into the Mahabharata text, and we will talk about that. But this one, The retrograde motion of Venus is one of them. So what does the observation says again? Just for refreshing the every one of you. Shukra proshtapade purve samaruhya vishapate uttaretu parikramya sahita pratyudikshate. Shukra, Venus, okay, came near Purva Bhadrapada. So right now Venus is here. This is near Shatabhisha, you can say. Purva Bhadrapada is the next nakshatra. So Venus came near Purva Bhadrapada, and what did it do? Uttaretu parikramya sahita pratyudikshate. It turned northward. So this is south, this is north. This is south here. This is north. It turned northward and then did a parikrama and then went further. That is a classic retrograde motion of Venus. Let's see if it does it. Okay. So we'll start with a 1 day step change. Okay. So there we go. Shukra Proshtapade Purve. It came near Purva Bhadrapada. Samaruhya Vishampate started shining in that area. And look now, turn backward by turning north. And Uttaretu Parikramya. It came back as far as Shatabhishaj. It made that whole parikrama in the area of Purva Bhadrapada. Uttaretu Parikramya Sahita Pratyudikshate. And where did it do this? Shukra Proshtapade Purve Samaruhya Vishampate. That's it, guys. There were 6 specific astronomy descriptions related to Venus at the time of Mahabharata war. Okay, one of them is Shukra or Venus going retrograde near Nakshatra Purva Bhadrapada by turning northward and completing one parikrama. We just saw that. And the additional 5 observations, they relate to the first day of the war when Venus was seen near Mars. We started with that observation. Then on the 9th day, Venus and Mercury were seen together in the same part of the sky. Again, Venus and Mercury were seen together on the 14th day of the war. I mean, those are the descriptions. Okay, they were always together through the 18 days per se and coming together, getting together. But the descriptions that are there are for the first day of the war with Mars, the 9th day of the war with Mercury, again on the 14th day of the war with Mercury, and on the 18th day of the war with Mercury and Mars. And of course, to recap, then Venus going retrograde near Purva Bhadrapada by turning northward and completing a parikrama. Shukra Proshtapade Purve Samaruhya Vishampate Uttaretu Parikramya Sahita Pratyudikshita. That's all, guys. Thank you. Please write your comments. Namaskar.